And welcome, Bett. How you going? Great to chat to you again, Bett.
Oh, Marty, it's so good to hear from you and see you. And I just loved getting to interview you on Big Bold Life podcast. So what an honor it is to be here.
Yeah, Ted connected us, and I didn't know who you were, but we had a really fun chat. I got a lot of really good responses from your podcast, and people really understood it. I just loved your. I've been listening to your podcast ever since, and I just love you really do live a big, bold life, and you want to encourage other people to do that. So I was saying before, I've had a bunch of other people who have talking about high level nutrition stuff, and not that you're not in that, but I think your major goal is just to help real people, especially women out there, to connect with who they want to be, live the biggest life that they can. But to do that, they need to sort of put themselves first, I think, is what you sort of had a bit of an aha discovery moment and realized that to serve and live a big, bold life out there, you need to look after yourself as a priority up front. So, yeah, I'm really amazed by that. And really, it's an inspiration to me, and I'm sure it'll be an inspiration to a lot of other people who will hear that message and go, it's okay to prioritize myself.
Yes. Oh, well, I know how hard it can be to prioritize our health. And
Yeah, yeah,
I know that a lot of times when people hear that, I think the response is, sure, I want to,
yeah,
sure, but when, but how, but
yeah,
what?
yeah.
And I I hope I can share as someone who is imperfect, has
Mm.
uh, tried a lot of different health,
Mm.
tips and different things, and at the end of the day, exactly what you said, I have found that the more I can prioritize my health, that I better all the other areas of my life.
Mm. Mm.
And that's been a huge part of my journey.
So to talk about the other areas of your life, what's your day job? You actually have a full time day job, is it? As
I
a in
do.
construction promotion management.
Yes. So I work in the energy industry. I oversee kind of sales and supply for my job. I'm a vice president of commercial there. And I've been in the industry about 15 years. And I'm married. I have six little ones, which even sounds
Six
crazy to
kids.
me. Six,
Six
six,
kids. I
six.
can't
I
get over
know.
that. How you can
Can I
manage
count that high? I
a
don't
day
know.
job.
Some
I
days.
don't know. We've got two, and that's way enough. But six is incredible. Under 10, is it?
Under 10. And, now they feel a little bit more spread out. But when we were in like the earlier years, it felt even like more condensed. But yeah, my youngest is 4 months and my
Wow,
oldest is 10. And I enjoy them immensely. And our house is crazy
it would
and
be.
fun and wild all at the same time.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the time the challenge for women is that they've got such a serving role that they always put everybody else in the world as number one, and they get the last priority, and then their health is like even way down the list for them. And I think you came to I don't know, I'd love you to talk about that point where you said, hey, to serve more, to live a bigger life, to do the things I want to do, to serve the people I love, I need to look after myself. So how did that come about? What was the
Sure.
light bulb moment?
So, to be honest, I always felt that I was decently healthy. I always was pretty active and I was fortunate. I always kind of had a pretty good body image. I felt good in my skin, and I hope that for everybody out there, no matter where you're at in your journey. But my aha moment was in 2015, Marty. I I had had 4 kids in 5 years, and 4 kids, 5 years.
Wow.
And it was my youngest. I know. And
We had two under two, and that was hell. But yeah,
yes, it's
they're
a
great
lot.
now. But yeah, it's a
Uh,
very exhausting time of life.
and I got a call from a friend, and she invited my husband and I on like a last minute trip. And my husband and I were like, you know what? We need to do this. Let's get away. Let's go. So we went. And the whole time, it was like one of the first times in my life where I just didn't feel completely good or comfortable in my skin. And I knew it was my time.
Mm,
And I talk about the word time a lot because I think there's a lot of people out there that it's their time too.
mm, mm,
And what I had to realize and accept was that it was going to take some time to figure this out, that my health had fallen too far down on the priority list,
mm,
but I was going to figure out how to do this. And that's what really the word bold, why that word is so important to me, because
mm,
when you're in that aha moment, when you're in that time, you kind of have to be bold to just say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to
mm,
start. I'm going to be bold enough to start. I'm going to be bold enough to challenge that I'm not being selfish.
mm,
And I'm going to be bold enough to go. And because you got to start, but you got to keep going. And
mm, mm,
I think that's a big part of that word for me and my journey. So I started kind of doing the things I'd always done. I've never been a sugar really fiend. My problem probably has always been I like to eat. I'm just
mm.
good at it. Like I have no problem with food. I like everything. Like give me every weird food. I mean, I like it all. Um, but I think what happens when you get to that point where your body has been kind of a little lower on the priority list, it's not that you can just do anything and things are going to change. And I
Mm,
especially think this is true for women, right?
mm,
And I think that's the next step where I had to be bold, is that I had to be bold enough to start challenging some of the things that I had been told that would work,
mm.
because all the things I had been told would work weren't
Didn't
really
work.
moving the needle,
Yeah.
right? They weren't working. And so in my journey, I ended up losing about 40 pounds,
Wow.
but I started to notice that I had this extra energy, this
Mm,
time. I had
mm.
time. And I was so confused by this because here was something that was supposedly going to take more time,
You're
right? It
being
was gonna,
self-indulgent and spending all this
yes,
time on looking after yourself, and you had more energy
yes,
and time to go, "What do I how do I serve people?"
yes. And then all of a sudden it was like the clarity was there. My purpose was becoming more clear. My energy was higher. I felt like I could be a better mom and a better wife.
Mm,
And so all the things that I feared that I was going to be less of, I
mm.
actually think I became more of. Still an imperfect
Love
version. We all
it.
are. But that is the message that I want to share on Big Bold Life podcast, is that
Yeah. Mm,
we all need to be bold enough to start. We all need to be
mm,
bold enough to go. But then once we start and we go, it's okay if you feel frustrated, because if some of the tools that you've been using aren't working, join the club, right? Join the club. And I think that's what I love sharing people's journeys like yours and others,
mm,
is that there's stories of hope and there's stories of new bold tools that people can
mm,
use on their
mm,
journey. And many of those tools have worked for me. And
mm,
I like sharing it because I'm not some, fitness freak, and not that that's a bad thing, but I'm not. I live a really real, chaotic,
mm.
busy life. And
6
if
kids
I
under
can do
10.
it, yeah, 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 yeah. And if I can do it, anyone can do it. And so part of my message is to start and to go. But the other part
Mm,
is there's some new tools out there that I
mm,
think need to be shared. And that's
mm.
that's why I'm so passionate about it.
So how long did it take you to lose, would you say 40 pounds? Probably through a few pregnancies as well, and, yeah. How long did that journey take you to reach a point where you said, "I'm happy with where I'm at"?
Oh, you just cut out a little bit. Did you say how
Oh,
long?
sorry. How long did that journey take to lose that much weight?
Sure. So it's interesting. The first part of my journey, I started just going lower carb. I just tried, going lower carb, and it worked a little bit. Like it had worked in
Mhm.
the past, but then I kind of stopped.
Mm,
And I started exercising more, worked a little
mm,
bit, and then I kind of Stop. And so what ended up really working for me at first was a friend of mine told me that she had to give up dairy and because her daughter was allergic to it and she was breastfeeding. And
Mm,
this
mm,
light went off. Like, well, I've gone low carb. I've tried that. I'm exercising now. Like I'm moving my
mm,
body more,
mm.
but I haven't tried cutting the cream out of my coffee. And it was like this like mind-boggling because it wasn't like I didn't put sugar in my coffee, Marty. Like I'm not a sugar
Yep.
like that wasn't my crutch. And so that was so cool. So I did that and then I decided to try the Whole30 kind of concept for a while. And that really, I think because of my love of cheese and my love of cream, it really, and I like to have wine with dinner at times. So I think
Mm,
those three things, just removing them for a bit and taking a
mm,
break,
mm.
it really jump started me.
Yeah,
And
wow.
so I started losing the weight pretty consistently. It wasn't like all at once, but I started weekly kind of going down. And then I got pregnant with my fifth.
That
And
doesn't help the weight loss journey.
yes. And so I had my fifth. Let's fast forward. I had my fifth. And all of a sudden I tried those same tools. I tried Whole30, I tried low carb, was exercising, wasn't working. Like I was like, what is going on? Why didn't it work like it did last time? Now it worked a little bit, but again, I was kind of stuck. And that was when I had started reading about elongating the time between meals.
Yeah.
And I was snacking a lot. Like they were healthy snacks.
Mm,
I wasn't doing processed food
mm,
snacks. I wasn't doing packaged
mm,
things, but I was snacking throughout my day.
mm.
And I was always hungry, always hungry. And
Wow.
I work out of an office. I would have my carrots. I would have my nuts. I would have my string cheese like all day. And that to me was a light bulb moment, right? When I
Mm,
thought, oh, maybe this snacking is problematic.
mm,
Maybe it's totally opposite. It shouldn't be all these meals throughout the day. Maybe my body needs a break. And so that light bulb kind of really helped jumpstart me past the low carb, past the exercising. And then I started kind of following the thought process of protein first a little bit more
yep, yep.
and building my plate around a protein. So
Mm,
less about what I couldn't have, but that the
yep.
base of my plate should be built around that. And as I did that, I naturally started being less and less hungry. And
Mm,
I started being like, well, maybe I'm going to skip dinner tonight. Like, I'm just not hungry. So a few days a week, I just started skipping dinner. And
yep.
then all of a sudden, the weight started going down. And all of a sudden, all the things, all the frustration of not the needle moving, it started moving. And I think that's what really was so empowering because here I'd found something that wasn't a pill, wasn't a powder, wasn't it was literally something that I think anybody could do. If
Mm,
I could do it,
mm.
anybody could do it. And so my journey was kind of a weird timeline because I had another baby and and now I've just had my sixth and I'm back on that journey again but
Yep,
I've kind of hit the ground, I would say, in a full sprint in a lot of ways
yep.
because I have all these tools and I
You know what
don't
to
feel
do now.
frustrated. Yes, it's so
Yeah.
empowering.
You've really stacked all the tools that work from, going low carb, but then you went, well, okay, I can't overdo the fat. I need to drop that back a little bit. And then intermittent fasting and then prioritizing protein and nourishing your body and giving it what it needs. And then that lizard brain settles down. And then once you're not hungry all the time, you can then easily lose the weight and do the intermittent fasting. They all sort of work together really nicely. And then you're just so passionate to share it. You seem to be out there and wanting to get that message across through your podcast. And I love how you interview the guests, but at the beginning you really simplify your view of the world. And it's just like, well, here's a a 3-minute bite-sized chunk. That's it. That's all you need to know. You don't need to know how it works, the detail, and I think that's a really valuable thing you're doing to communicate the simple message of what people need to implement without having to understand the biochemistry or the micros and macros and everything that goes behind that. I think you just present a really clean message of this is what I've learned, this is what I want to consolidate and hand to you, so you can pick up and hit the ground running too, like you've got to. So yeah, that's awesome. So how long did that overall journey take with the pregnancies in between?
Yeah, so I would say so I had my fifth in 2017, and that was in the September 11th, 2017. It's an easier birthday to remember for unfortunate reasons.
In a
Um,
good way.
yeah, and I was done, kind of hit my goal weight after that, probably about a year and a half after her birth. So
Okay.
it was probably like 2019. I was in the best shape probably of my adult life, even college. Even
That's
I would put
awesome.
myself very similar to my high school physique, and I was a three-sport athlete,
Wow.
and
Wow.
it was really exciting. I never thought I could have a waistline again. I just thought, like, that's just what you give up as being a mom of
It's
multiple
all
babies,
over.
and I had a waistline. I had a belt. Marty, a big thing for me is I got to buy a belt. I was like, oh, a belt. What's this? So it was a lot of like putting those pieces together. But now that's why I'm so passionate about sharing all the different tools, because
Mm,
what works for
mm,
me might not work for you or might not work for somebody else.
mm,
But
mm,
maybe
mm.
it's a combination thereof.
Yeah. So you've got this amazing can-do attitude that, were you born that way? Is it nature nurture? Did you choose to continue to grow that, nurture it, and not? A lot of people are knocked off their perch by something in life that
Right.
makes them feel like a victim, and they can't conquer life. But it's amazing when you believe in yourself and just go, hey, life is fun. I've got one life. I'm going to treat it as a challenge, and it doesn't matter how it turns out when I play it. It's just as long as I play it, and you just seem to embody that with everything you do. Is that something you think you picked up from your parents or your influences, or how do you nourish and cultivate that mentality?
I definitely was someone who was always a natural motivator. I always would win the motivation award on the sports teams, and I just joked because it meant that I was really bad at the sport, probably. But I, I was,
Everybody else won the races,
yeah,
and they
they
said,
won
"You've
the
got
race.
you're a motivator."
Yeah, yeah. I'm too busy cheering you on. But I do think I've always naturally had that, positive perspective. I also had parents that were very positive, that
Mm,
really encouraged and believed in me, and
mm,
always, I feel like, saw the best in those around us, helped other people. And obviously, I'm still learning from their example. In many ways, they are still those people today. Like, it's really hard
mm,
for my mom to ever say something critical about someone. She really can see that, and this is a lesson that I've learned through the years, is that when someone is critical of us, right, that it's not about us. They're often
mm,
hurting. It's
mm,
a lot of times it's a call for love and attention. And I
mm.
think the more that we all can realize that, I think then you start not being as afraid to just be who you are, right?
Mm,
Because if we are living a life based on our critics and not based on the
mm,
people that love and support us, we're going to be different
yeah,
people, right? Like, you and I are going to be different people. And so I think that's part of being bold. Bold isn't being, I am a lot of ways the word bold. I am a chatty, loud, big personality. But that's not bold. That doesn't have to be bold. You can be boldly quiet, boldly humble, boldly you. But
introverted.
I
Mm,
think that my passion is that I just stopped letting the people that might be negative, might be
Mm.
critical, might not get me,
Mm.
change who I was. I wasn't going to do that anymore,
And who
and I
you
wasn't
want to
going to
be.
shift to that. And
Mm.
that's what I want everyone out there. You are who you are.
Mm.
You are going to be dealt things in life, right? And
Mm.
we can't change some of those things, but we can either see them as for us or against us.
Mm.
And I try to see that every opportunity is for me. Like this
Mm.
day, this is for me. How can I use this for me and to make it,
Yeah.
and by meaning for me to make a difference in my life and in others.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where we have that choice every day. And
Mm.
what I started to realize, and this is the challenge I hope everyone hears who's listening, is that I started to realize that when I became more of who I was and bold in who I was, it didn't encourage other people to be more like me. It helped
Mm.
them be more bold in who they were.
I
And
love it.
that's the key, right? I think when we think that if we're more ourselves that it's a problem. I think it helps light other people up. And so
Mm.
that's really my goal, is to
Mm.
be a light, and even if it annoys some people, because my personality is not for everybody and I know it, but I can't be who I'm not.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I don't want anyone out
I love
there
it.
to not be who they are. And
Mm.
that's a huge part of our health journey, in my
Yeah.
opinion,
Yeah.
is that when we come to peace with who we are and our journey, to me, that's just as important as what you're eating and not eating, the exercise, the sleep.
Mm.
It's finding that peace with you and kind of your life. Been given to you.
Mm.
What has been dealt to you.
Mm.
You having peace with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really challenging world at the moment in a lot of ways, and we get our gratification and our self-esteem off social media. And like my daughter talks about, who's 16, the challenge that everybody's going through because their identity is based on how many likes they get on Instagram. And it's
Yes.
a it's a really challenging world for those kids growing up who are, how do they find their identity, and they're craving the reassurance. And like you said, a lot of people who are critical are just having the same identity crisis, and you know, biting other people to make an impact somewhere in the world. But if you find a way to make an impact in your world for the positive by being you and making the world around you better and brighter and healthier, and trying to nurture other people and lift other people up, then I just find that gives so much, so much more happiness and hope. And that's what I try to instill in the kids, is that it's not about trying to get attention for you, but it's about how do I, look after my friends and nurture them, and help them grow and help them feel comfortable and ask them about themselves, and how can you nurture them. And all of a sudden you've got this amazing community of people who like you because you make them feel good about themselves. And my daughter just did a school captain speech this week, and smashed it, and like she's really excited about that, and hopefully she'll be school captain. And that's through implementing that sort of approach. So we're proud as punch of these kids who are trying to implement that in the world. So yeah, it's not just, a lot of the people in my audience are sort of the middle aged to older women who are struggling with diabetes, but it's the whole spectrum of how do we live our big bold life in our world today. So it's really exciting. Yeah, I hope more people pick up your mantra, and get out there and live a big bold life. It's so cool. So just to recap your dietary approaches, you said low carb, cutting out a bit of the fat, prioritizing
Mhm.
protein, some sort of intermittent fasting, and that sort of all came together to work the magic for you. Is that right?
I'm sorry, I lost that last part, Marty. Can you say that last
So,
part again?
so yeah, I suppose to reiterate your dietary approach, you've basically said low carb, dial back the fat, prioritize protein, get some exercise. I suppose, how do you cut through the diet wars? There's so many, extreme diet wars, and
Totally.
how have you managed to work your way through that, to block that out without, you seem to have found your own path between the extremes. How did you manage that from a mental game? Because I think a lot of people just find it so confusing with so many extreme, it's this way or that way or this way, and there's no other way.
Totally. And I think that's a big part of your message, Marty, is you're being bold to say that we all have different shoe sizes and styles. And, what works for you may not work for me, but we
Mm,
can have, sorry, I'm going to put this away here. We can have all these tools in our tool belt and implement them. And
mm,
I feel that the mistake when people get really dogmatic is that they're thinking like the horse with the blinders on. They're not thinking like,
mm,
well, that tool may work for you in the future. Might not be a tool for
mm,
now, but maybe it's a tool
mm,
down the road, or maybe it's a tool for my brother. Hey,
mm,
and I think that that's where I feel that every person who tells me what they're doing is working, I believe them. I believe them
mm,
that it's working, and I want to learn from them because,
mm,
as evidenced by my journey, I've pulled little things from all these different
mm,
areas. And I'm turning 40 this year, and I know that maybe what I'm doing now may not work, in a year
mm.
from now. Maybe I need to tweak it a little bit more or change it a little bit more. And so,
Yeah.
on my fasting journey, that's why I love intermittent fasting and I'm so passionate about it, because you can literally shift it in so many ways for
Mm,
your life, your lifestyle, what fits you in that moment. What do you need
mm,
right now? Early in my journey, I had more of a midday eating window. I really liked it.
mm.
It was my jam. I ate at lunchtime was my big meal, and then I skipped dinner mostly. Now,
Yep.
just based on my life and where we're at and what's going on, I'm working from home more. An evening window has been better.
Mm,
So,
mm,
what I think what I hope people do when they hear all these different dogmas is say, maybe keep listening. Don't,
mm.
never say never. Never, don't be too quick to um,
Mm.
take it in. Listen to people. Say,
Yeah.
hmm, because when I first started my journey, I was probably more vegetable forward. And now
Mm.
I'm probably more protein forward, but I still eat vegetables
Yeah.
and I still eat carbs. I'm not like anti-carb.
Yep.
I just know if my diet is too many carbs or too many processed carbs
Mm.
is problematic for me.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good insight. So you had a podcast the other day about alcohol, and I think alcohol has been an interesting thing because people used to go out to drink before coronavirus, and then
Right.
people found they could drink at home, and they could drink at home all the time. And yeah, what's your journey? What's your learning there, and what do you see in the wider world, and why did you choose to go out on a limb and say, maybe we need to think about this, and is it really good for our health to be doing regularly?
Yeah. So I've always been a very social person, obviously. And I think what comes with that a lot of times is going out and going to dinner with friends and having wine and having a drink. And I'm very much a like, let's have fun. Come on, guys. And what was happening, or what I was noticing for my husband and I, is most nights we were having a glass of wine with dinner. And it wasn't just one glass. We would finish the bottle, and it was very
Mm,
normal. And
mm,
what I started to realize is that I was doing all of this work in all of these areas to be healthier. And I think that I needed to take a harder look to make sure that I was also doing it in the area of alcohol,
mm,
right?
mm,
And I'm fortunate to be someone who doesn't have an addiction, but there's a lot of
mm,
people that do struggle with it. And I think it's a topic that people don't want to talk about. Right? It's such a scary topic because people don't want you to tell them to not have cream in their coffee. That's a no, number one. Like, don't tell me what to do with my coffee. And two, don't take away my nightly wine. But I believe strongly that if we all just reduce the amount of wine we had in a week, and I focus on
Mm,
wine a lot because that's not because it's not other alcohols too, but I do think that from what I see and hear, and especially
mm,
from physicians and others, it's the wine. It's a few glasses of wine a night that
mm,
becomes every night. And
mm,
um, I'm just really passionate to encourage people, not that they have to give it up altogether. No, I love my Sauvignon Blanc, but I think the more we can take breaks from it, reduce the amount we have it, it makes our fasting easier, it makes our
mm,
exercise better, it makes our sleep better, it makes our hormones better. I mean, the list
mm,
is so long. And what you have to do, like any habit, right? You have to take a break long enough to realize how much better you feel without it. And that,
mm,
and I think that, the first few weeks, when you say, I'm only going to have it one night a week or twice a week, whatever your jam is,
mm.
the first few weeks feel hard. You're like, oh, I miss it though. I miss it. I'm used to this.
Yeah,
But then you start realizing how much better you feel.
yeah,
And that's my message, is alcohol getting in the way of all the other things you're trying to do? Is it getting in the way of your fasting? Is it getting in the way of trying not to snack? Because I think it's really, and not to simplify it, but I think for a lot of people out there, it's what's in your coffee and it's what you're drinking at night. I mean, I think that's really, I hate to simplify it. I like to simplify, Marty. That's
that's
my
great.
simple.
Yeah, yeah, and they're two big things, and then maybe snacking, and if you take those out,
Totally.
you're a long way down the road. And I know whenever I drink a little bit, you enjoy it a bit, but the next day I just feel trash, and I process alcohol really badly, and
Yes.
I'm a mess. And I go, it wasn't that much fun last night to be this, I value my brain thinking the next day, and if I can't do that, it's like and every time I say to the kids, why don't I drink again? And yeah, but yeah, each to their own, though. As you say, each person needs to find their own journey, but alcohol is definitely, from an oxidative priority point of view, has to be burnt off first, so it's
Sure.
not calorie free.
Right.
And yeah, you don't sleep as well, and yeah, it's definitely going to be a challenge. So 6 kids, what do you eat at home? How do you cook for 6 kids? How do you manage that? What are your favorite meals? Do you have different meals for you versus the kids? And how does that look? That's mind blowing.
So I'm disclosing my deepest, darkest secret here. My husband is the good cook. My husband is the good cook. I am
I
not
won't tell
good.
Money, she'll be
There you
jealous.
go. It's see, I'm a juggler, but I can't. That's the way. No, my husband is a fabulous cook. In fact, it's made me a worse cook being married to him because he's so good. Why do I even practice, right?
That's
Um,
great. That's
so
great.
we love building our plate around a protein. And a few things that are our favorites are, we love the flank steaks at Costco. We find that
Oh,
they're
wow.
really family friendly. We'll marinate a few of them ahead of time, put them in the freezer, and the kids love them. They slice up really nicely. We love chicken drumsticks because the kids love, like, they seem to eat really well if it's a
Yep.
drumstick
It's a whole lot
versus
of
like,
fun to hold it with your
yeah,
hand and chew down on it.
as long as they're not hitting each other with it, Marty. And so we love that. My husband, his favorite is like he loves chicken and rice dishes. Like he's just a fabulous cook. We had salmon last night. But I think the best recommendation I can give if you're feeding your family is that don't get bogged down by perfection. The
Mm.
fitness blogger that is trying to tell you she always eats perfect just went to McDonald's yesterday. Don't, don't, it's not, we're not, it's perfection gets in the way of good, but
Yep.
really try to, most times, build it around a protein when you can. And
Mm.
then I find everything else kind of falls into place. If you want a
Mm.
vegetable, if you want a starch for the kids, we are
Mm.
regular. My kids were kind of rice people. I know some
Mm.
people don't do any rice, or some people are more other starches, but I think that's
Yeah.
pretty common for my children.
Yeah,
Breakfast.
and kids who are really active will need more carbohydrate, potatoes, starch,
Totally.
whatever that is, to like my son's out there on the rugby field and he just needs to come home and eat to replenish, and he can only eat so much protein.
Yes.
Yeah, so getting that energy in, but for the older adults who aren't as active, maybe they need to dial that back. But as you say, you can put it all on the table and then they can choose what they actually need.
Yeah, and if you're built around a protein and the starch is there, you don't have to have the starch as an
Mm,
adult. So it's a
mm,
perfect, nice fit. I would say the one area that we're the most imperfect about is probably breakfast. Is just because I don't eat breakfast. My husband
yep,
doesn't eat breakfast. So that's the most kid-friendly meal around here.
yep,
We have chickens, but my kids don't love eggs. And so sometimes breakfast is the most challenging one. But
yeah,
I just tell people don't get bogged down by perfection. Just
mm,
try your best and every day like think of new ways you can be a little bit better than yesterday.
mm. So, how does all this rub off on your kids? How do your kids live? And it must have a positive effect that is part of your plan, I suppose, to see them learn to live a big, bold, vibrant, healthy life.
I think for my kids, all of my children are so different. And
Mm,
if I have one job, I think, is to make sure that they know exactly kind of what I said in the beginning is that I don't want them to be anyone else but who they are. And that's being bold, is that I want them, they are here on this earth. They were uniquely, beautifully made. I want them to take all their gifts and use them the only way they can only use them. And
mm,
then from a health perspective, I just want them to love their bodies wherever
mm,
they're at and love who they are. But I also hope they um, realize that their health being a priority will help every other area of their life.
mm,
And
mm,
um, that's a big part of who I am. And I'm really open and honest with them on like fasting and different things. And I like to share with them. A lot of people get scared, especially moms, to talk about fasting
mm,
with their kids. It's not that I'm out promoting it to them, but
mm,
they'll see me maybe not have dinner. And I love to share with them that, I'm done growing. They're still
mm,
growing, right?
mm,
And that I've learned to listen to my body. And I want them to have that tool someday too and
mm.
listen to their heart, listen to what their
Yep.
body's telling them. And then I think that makes your health journey a lot easier.
Yeah, and they can live such a more vibrant, healthy, happy life and not depressed and not burdened by self-image issues to the same extent. I just see my teenagers just thriving and loving life, and just the opportunity that having a good body image because they're happy and healthy affords them is so important. And it's a big deal that we give a gift to our kids by, like you've said, looking after your own health journey and prioritizing yourself and making that time and headspace to look after yourself. So yeah, thank you for being such an inspiration to me, and hopefully I just wanted to share your journey with anybody who would listen to let them get a piece of Bett, which is a bright, shiny avenue in the world to we need more things out there that are just bright, shiny, and positive rather than all the negative and hype. And so you just offer a really clear, simple, helpful message. Yeah. So thank you for doing that in the world and being big and bold. Yeah. So where can people find you and follow Bett? You've got a podcast and a group
Well,
and a
thank you.
website.
Yes, and a website. Thank you for your kind words. It's really an honor to receive them.
Yeah.
I am Bett Lucas on pretty much every platform. So Bett Bett Lucas and Lucas. I also have a podcast that Marty has been an amazing guest on, episode 23. And my podcast is called Living Your Big Bold Life. And I interview people on the topics of fasting, health, career, family. And
Mm,
I hope that the podcast is an inspiring message to people on ways that they can thrive in each of those areas, even
Mm.
if the guest is very different than them. I know that not most people listening don't have 6 kids. I don't expect you to have 6 kids, but I hope that by sharing some of these bold journeys, they help you on your journey, because they help me on mine. And then I lead a few
Mm.
Facebook groups. um, my most popular one is called Motivate, and with my Betty Lou, and it's just if you search Motivate. But love to
Mm.
have any of you come find me. I'm better with you being there, and
Mm.
come take a listen and go listen to Marty's episode. It's fabulous. I learned so much that day.
Yeah, yeah, you had Ted Naiman was the first one before
Yes.
me, and Jen Stevens and Cynthia Furlow and a whole bunch of really interesting people. So yeah, you bring out the simple message without having to dive in. It's not a Peter Attia delve into the biochem. It's just here's what you can do to implement today simply and just get on with your day and with a positive attitude. So thank you for sharing that with the world. Thanks, Beth. Thanks so much for coming on today.
What an honor. Thanks, Marty. I love seeing you.
Thank you.